Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode number 18 of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we will be interviewing Ocalm Solution Leadership Development Consultant Robert Glaspie.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
First time joining the Lead to Greatness community, I want to invite you to subscribe wherever you are listening and watching. Also, if this content is helpful to you, please leave a review, like, share, and help get the word out. That would be awesome. I want to say a big thank you to those who share across your social media platforms. Be looking for valuable content every Thursday. And also, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you won't miss any valuable content every week. Joining me today, my special guest. Hello, hello. How's it going, Robert?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I can't complain. Doing good. How's everything going on your end?
Absolutely good. Busy.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely excited to have you on the Lead to Greatness podcast on today. Just looking forward. You know, you and I, we talk. We've been talking lately on a weekly basis, and definitely, you know, we've met at Starbucks. You know, you definitely poured into my life for the last 5 years.
Wow.
And
Can't believe it's been that long.
it's been 5 years, but man, you've definitely been a blessing in my life. And I really want to get you here on the podcast today to, you know, everything that you pointed to me, you know, maybe, you know, Lead to Greatness audience can get a piece of, you know, what I get on a weekly basis. So things that I have received from you. And I mean, it's really been a blessing to, you know, the way I do ministry, the way I do business, and even you know, lead me to what I'm doing now with the podcast and you know, the marriage coach podcast my wife and I are doing. You know, all this come about from, you know, a lot of the leadership things, skills, and things I have learned from you. What is the greatest leadership lesson you ever learned?
I guess I would have to say it is learning to lead from my instincts.
Hmm.
It was always, when I first got into leadership years and years ago, um, I, I, I started leading the way I saw other people leading. So I tried to borrow a little this from this person, borrow a little this from that person. So, that'll get you so far. And because what you're borrowing, you don't understand why that person does what they do. And so you may borrow something that worked for them but doesn't work for you. And so it took me a while to get that confidence to say, okay, I mean, I have some ideas and thoughts on how I should be doing something. And so that leading from your own instincts, and I've left a few people in leadership, behind positions that I've left. And that's always my last lesson to them. After I've given them all of the things about leadership and what they should do, I say trust your instincts
Right.
because they won't fail you, and because ultimately you're accountable as a leader. So it's better to explain why you did what you did because it was your idea
Right.
than to explain I did something because someone else told me. So yeah, I think that's the greatest one.
Right.
Is just trust your instincts.
Right. I remember we were at Starbucks definitely prior to COVID-19. We're at Starbucks, and you said something that really was a big impact on my life when you were talking about when you was working in the corporate world, how you walked around, you had your coffee, you went in the morning, and you asked some key questions. But let's talk about that.
I'm really proud of the fact that you remember that. See,
Yeah.
just to give your audience a little, background, you validate everything I've been trying to do for the past 20 years.
Wow.
And a lot of what I've been trying to do, gets criticism because some people, experts, have this definition of how you become a leader, and I've always leaned more toward the softer side of leadership
Mm,
as opposed to the hard side, which is all the technical,
absolutely.
management portion. Um, but the what you're talking about actually has become one of our models. It's called the coffee cup conversation.
Mm,
And so I would do two things, and did them intentionally, because when I first became a leader, I went through the normal path, being a supervisor, then becoming a manager, and that normal path. And the higher you go up in leadership, the less you know. I
Hmm.
know that seems counterintuitive. The
Right.
less you know about your organization because you're getting further removed from the processes,
Right.
and the less you know about what it is you should be doing because you're constantly leaving your comfort zone and going into a new area. So I realized that. So the one thing I used to do intentionally was I would get to work an hour before my staff, and then I would leave an hour before they left. And I did it for two reasons. One, I got there an hour before because there were a lot of administrative portions to leadership that I needed to get done, answering emails, returning phone calls, and so forth,
Right.
and thinking about my day. That way, when they got there, I had time for them and they had time for me. And I would leave an hour early because I wanted them to experience what it was like not to have me around. Because during the course of the day, undoubtedly, they would come in 2 or 3 times a day with a question or they needed a decision. And I would always ask them the one question that became a joke after a while. I would say, after I listened to them explain, I'd say, "What would you do if I weren't here?" Because I wanted to hear their thought process. Plus, it was part of my way of coaching them. And they would 90% of the time give the right answer. I said, "Well, go do that." And the second thing I would do, we call it the coffee cup conversation. After I had that hour of my time before they got there, and as they were starting to come in and get busy on their jobs, on my way to the coffee bar, I'd go get my coffee and then I'd take my coffee cup and I'd just walk around. And there were three questions I would ask. How are you doing? What are you working on? And how can I help?
Right.
And after a while, I would ask those questions, not necessarily, like an interview, but I wanted to elicit that. So, how are you doing was to get at, personally, how are you doing? Said, I care about you. I want to know what's going on in your life. What are you working on? Got at, what are you busy on? Maybe you're off task. Maybe you misunderstood my instruction.
Yeah.
And how can I help? Show them that I was ready to support. And it also gave them an opportunity to have me while I was there because once I disappeared into my office, I may not have been available later on. But those three questions kind of became the framework for our business.
Wow. And I look at those questions because this when you taught that to me, I didn't realize the effect of it. And it's kind of what I do, just talking to people. All three questions basically saying, I care, I care, I care. And not
Absolutely.
only that is allowing people to figure it out their own way. One thing I've learned, even in leadership, utilizing these principles, that first of all, people really get a sense of my heart and how much I care about them as people. Besides task and getting things done. Zig Ziglar, he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly.
And that's something that that's really big. But another thing that's really helped me in developing leaders is allowing people. I remember people come to the church and they used to prior leadership, and they come to me with all the questions. How should we
Absolutely.
do this? How should we do this? What color should we paint the wall? And I'm
Yes.
like, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. You figure it out. I mean, I trust you enough. I trust you enough. I put you in leadership. I trust you enough that you're going to make the right decision. If you come to me with these decisions or these questions, the truth of the matter is, not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but why do I have you in the position if I
Exactly.
have to make all the decisions? So it allows people to grow. And one thing that's happening in our organization is people are growing, and we're able to develop and become more mature and organized as an organization, just kind of letting people loose instead of micromanaging people. So it's really has definitely been a big blessing, in my life and in leadership as far as developing leaders. I remember when we first met, our first meeting at Starbucks. The leaders was me. Everything came, from my head. I made the
Yep.
decisions, And, after meeting with you, I've learned the form of delegating and allowing somebody else to, lead and figure it out their own way.
Yeah, I mean, and I go back to that first meeting, and I'm not sure which order I kind of introduced some of these models to you. Um, but I remember one of the first ones was the Treetop leadership model,
Yes, explain that.
which is a model I developed when I was in West Africa. And
Yeah.
what that model is about is leaders have a very difficult job, and they have a very peculiar job and a very unique job. And I mean, use Moses as an example, And so Moses is leading the people to the promised land. He was the only one assigned with that task.
Right.
No one could help him do that.
Yeah.
No one. And so, but the problem is, leaders, along with that task, take on all of these other tasks that have nothing to do with leadership.
Mm.
They have things to do with goal setting and working out a strategy and operational things that can easily be delegated. But you use a key word in there, and that is trust.
Mm.
If you don't trust the people to delegate that to them, you'll never get it done. So you'll start taking on all of these things that have nothing to do with leadership, but everything with running the business, because there's two pieces: there's guiding the business and there's running the business.
Yeah.
And so you want to guide the business, but you can't run it at the same time. So you have to develop leaders to do all of these things under in, but you have to trust them to do it. And so that's the whole point behind a lot of what I do personally and what we do as a business. If I could sum up my vision, mission, and passion all in two words, and I've kind of articulated it in two words, it's be available.
Wow.
Be available. Be available to coach, be available to support, be available to advise, but not do your job. I'm
Mm.
not going to do it. And what it does, it grows leaders faster because you allow them to make the mistake, you allow them to be involved in every part of the process. And it allows you to do your job, uh, which is a very unique job. So, treetop leadership is about a leader sitting in a tree with a purview that no one else has. That leader is looking out over the horizon. They may see all of the obstacles. Let's say the job is building a road through the forest.
Mm.
They see up ahead, miles ahead, there's a water barrier, there's a mountain. So they're making decisions about what are we going to do when we get to the water? Do I need to send a crew ahead to start building a bridge? How are we going to get through the mountain? Are we going around it? But the people on the ground can't see it.
Yeah.
All they see is the tree in front of them that they need to cut down.
Wow.
And so the problem for a lot of leaders in that concept is the people on the ground who are working very hard, chopping down trees, clearing a path, blisters on their hand. They think they work harder than anyone in the organization. And they look up in the tree and they see the leader doing nothing.
Wow.
And they say, look, he's doing nothing while we're doing all the work, because they haven't learned to appreciate what the leader does. And most leaders don't appreciate, the unique job of leadership.
And I remember this. I remember like yesterday. I was so frustrated with leadership. Now going forward 5 years. I mean, leadership is so beautiful. I mean, I'm
Yes.
talking. I love it, especially the development, and I can just understand the way you feel. When you first met me versus where what I'm becoming as a leader based
Yeah.
on seeds that you have sown in my life. And here I am, I see the same thing. The seeds
Yeah.
you sown in my life, and here
Yeah.
I am taking the same fruit. God said in
Yes.
Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. And I'm
Yes.
doing the same thing, not just in the ministry, but now here on Lead to Greatness,
Yes.
really just giving this thing away. I was talking, I made a joke before. I said, I'm on Lead to Greatness. I mean, you never see me put up my Cash App, Cedric. I'm not even gonna get my Cash App, but never put my Cash App, because I'm doing the Lead to Greatness, and everything I give, I want to get rewarded for it. My reward is just to see, the growth of the people. But I remember in the very beginning, I was that leader
Yes.
that had to go on top of the tree. Then I
Yeah.
came back down, then go back up the tree,
Yeah.
came back down. And while I'm down working, there's things going on and there's things I wasn't able to see. So I couldn't see that far. I mean, I only can see a few, and what it caused me to be, I end up being a reactive leader instead of a proactive leader. From 5 years ago up until now, I still, every single day, it's in my head. It's like branded in my brain. All I can see, and I evaluate myself. I'm like, okay, am I staying up on top of the tree or am I coming down? And even now, 2020, I still find myself coming down from the tree. But because I am aware of it, I know that it's something that can be gauged and there's the area that I can be better in. Just kind of just thinking this is just the way it is, and I haven't accepted that. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, and when you come down, it's not that the leader never comes down, because the leader has come down, because there are functions of leadership that require you to come down and be amongst the people. But you teach people on what you're doing. You tell them, I mean, it's intentional. You become more visible and more transparent. I mean, I would literally put signs on my door to let people know I was in what was called Q2 time, which, the Stephen Covey principle of, meaning I'm staring at the ceiling. I mean, that's literally what I was doing. I had my feet propped up and I was staring at the ceiling, and I would take an hour during the day to do that. And they recognized it and they understood it. Why? Because for 7 hours a day, I was available to them. And so I needed an hour but it still goes back to trust. I remember the first scenario I gave you, and it was, okay, let's say you're driving up to the church building on Saturday morning and you see a lot of cars and you don't remember anything being on the schedule. And, you talk to one of the sisters, you said, what's going on? She said, oh, Pastor, we got your vision. We took it. And, and we knew that there was a lot of single mothers in this neighborhood. And so we gathered them all and we got them all in there and we're teaching them. And so you were going to have one or two reactions. Either one, you were going to say, how dare they do that without my permission? Or two, you were going to be overjoyed, because that means the vision was alive and well. And so we talk about these things like, setting a vision and having a mission, and we put it on our websites and do all that. But do we really live it? Do we trust people to catch it? Because once they catch that vision, it's not ours. It was to give to them so they could take it forward. Because if they don't catch it, then whatever it was lives and dies with you. It has no legacy. And so the whole point of what we're doing is so that someone will carry it forward.
I remember that story. And I'm telling you, when you first told me that story, I have to be honest with you. I was like, man, this don't seem possible. It don't seem possible. I was like, man, that sounds great. I mean, I would love to go to the church and I don't know what's going on. And here I am again. I just want to share with you the seeds that has rooted and taken and created fruit. We feed the community twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Every single day. That was a time I was working. Last year I was working in the corporate world full time, and I was working a full-time job. So during the day I'm at work, and I'm telling you, last year we're feeding the community on Wednesdays and Fridays, and I tell you, last year I may have been to maybe 6 to 8 feedings that I attended. When I actually go to because I've been to more this year, and when I go to the feeding, I have to ask them what to do because I have no idea, because they have everything under control, and it's so amazing, and I'm just excited that you telling these stories again. It's getting me fired up and excited because it's bringing back memories, because I remember then, and then I'm looking at now, and everything you told me then has happened. And it's like, man, and so now we have our conversations, everything that come out your mouth, I'm just taking it all in. I'm taking it in, and I'm continuing to write notes, because I'm like, man, everything you told me in the past, everything has worked. I mean, it's been challenging, especially delegation, for the fact of me, I'm so used to, or I've been so used to doing everything myself. And so delegating, and like you said, trusting someone to take care of the task, and man, just putting competent people that you can trust and give them the task. And then the awesome thing about it, I mean, the people in the ministry, they allow me. Matter of fact, And this is so crazy. I don't,
Yeah.
maybe you can help us with this, but I have no clue how it ended up like this. But what happened is I can be on the treetop and they encourage me to stay on the treetop.
Absolutely.
And they tell me in this season right now, they'll tell me, Pastor, we got it, we got it, we
Yeah.
got it, we got it. You take care, you do your thing. We know you're busy. You take care of that, and we'll take care of this. And they okay with taking care of it. They don't want me to come off the tree. I'm thinking about this right now. I'm thinking
And
about
the
the process. I'm
reason
like,
they don't want you to come off the tree is they recognize what you're doing up there. See, in that scenario I gave you with Treetop Leadership, that group that's looking up with despising the leader, saying, wow, he's not doing anything. We're doing all the work.
mm,
The paradigm shift is when they understand the value of what you're doing up there and how they benefit from it.
mm,
And so that's when they like, I mean, anyone who's ever worked for me, whether it was here in the US or overseas, um, and I still keep in touch with people who work for me. And I remember one scenario, I was over the training, and I was in West Africa, and I was a training manager. And I had a group of people, I think about 5 or 6 people that worked for me. And inevitably, my office was the first one you got to when you came in. So people would come in and they'd stop at my office, and I ask them, what do you want? Because you must be in the wrong office. And they tell me what they want. I say, I knew you were in the wrong office, uh, because I don't do anything here.
um,
I'm the manager.
yeah.
and and it was true, because I had, delegate everything that can be delegated, because you have a huge job. The reason leaders hold on to all of those tasks, because they have no idea what leaders do.
Wow.
But once you get rid of all those tasks, you will find that your day is full, because you're the one planning, trying to create a vision, trying to sell and communicate that vision, because you can't just communicate it one time. You got to communicate it all the time, constantly remind people of what it is. And then that vision, how you manifest it is going to evolve.
Mm.
It's going to evolve as the needs change, as you grow leaders, as the business change, as the community changes. And so, I mean, you're living proof that it works.
Living proof. Listen to me, people. It works. It works. I'm telling you, 5 years ago, I had no clue. And here I am now. And the people are grateful for it. They're just so I I'm trying my best not to make it about.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm doing this right now, because I want to help people. I want people to
Sure.
experience what I'm experiencing. I
Exactly.
mean, I'm talking about this thing. I'm having a blast. I'm
Yeah.
having a blast at it. But then I'm having the blast when I'm seeing people come to me and they're pouring out, they're crying,
Yeah.
tears of joy. So let's say you have that leader. You
Mhm.
have that leader that's been doing everything by themselves, because the secret truth is they really don't trust anybody else to do it.
Right.
What advice would you give to that leader?
Try it. I mean, that's, yeah. Okay, it begins with the leader. Leadership always begins with me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with my team. And so I have to ask myself, what is it that I'm most afraid of? And I understand people want excellence.
Yeah.
They want excellence. But they always believe the only path to excellence is me doing it myself.
Mm,
Well, an organization like that is just failing slower.
yeah.
That's all they're doing. They're just failing slower. And so what I mean by failing slower is there's only so much output one person can give.
Mm,
And like you said, so if I'm the person at the top and I've got to chair every meeting, I've got to approve not only the day we're going to have this event on, I've got to approve the seating arrangements. I've got to approve, don't do anything, it's not approved until, the leader says it's approved. We've got to run it by him. Well, what you're teaching them is they don't have to invest a lot. And so of course they won't become excellent, because they already know that you're going to proof it. You're going to have the final decision. So they'll only get it so far, because they already know you're going to finish it off. But if you tell them, this is yours, You own it. You're the chairperson for this committee. And all I ask is that you bring it to the standard that makes you proud.
Mm.
Don't make it be about you. Make it be about them.
Yeah.
Or, it's the same thing we do with our kids. During my leadership in when I worked in oil and gas, uh, I would hire once a year. We hire COE students. These were cooperative, high school students who would come into the organization. And whenever they came into the organization, my supervisors would interview them and they select them. And then I say, I want to meet them when they come in. And so we're talking 17-year-old kids. They're working with all these adults in this oil company. And so it was kind of intimidating. So I bring them to the office. I say, I have three rules. The first rule is you're the boss. And I say, I know you don't understand that, but you will. And later on, they would come back and say, I got it. I understand. Because what I was trying to tell them, I'm here to serve you. I'm going to be available. So you get to tell me how you want to be led. The second rule was anything can be changed. Your job is to ask why at least 2 or 3 times a day. Well, why do you do it this way? Well, why is that process this way? You don't get in trouble for asking why. And
Love it.
if you have a better way that we can do it, do it. Now, these are high school students coming into a Fortune 500 oil company.
Jeez.
And the third thing I would say, make me proud. Just make me proud.
Wow.
And that would govern their behavior. To this day, I still have a close friendship. As a matter of fact, I work for one of them. He's an assistant principal. He was an assistant principal, and he
Wow.
hired me to come in and do some presentations for him.
Uh,
And so I would tell the kids that story. Like, I used to work for this guy who is now your assistant principal. He used to work for me, and now I'm working for him.
That's
But
awesome.
but it was all about setting that. And once I told them that, you're the boss. Anything can be changed. Ask why, and make me proud. That governed their behavior, but it also empowered them with something that they didn't want to fail
Wow.
because they were really trying to prove themselves worthy. And so I would say to leaders who still are stuck in that, I've got to have my hands on everything. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. But the first process is you got to trust the people that are under you because you cannot do it by yourself. You're going to fail or you're just going to get stagnant and you're going to get to one point and you can't get to that next threshold because, like you said, you're always reacting and you're never visionary. I mean, no one saw COVID coming,
Yeah.
but there were leaders who were already prepared for it because they were already in
Absolutely.
that mindset of saying, hey, we're nimble, we change, we can adapt.
Yeah.
But leaders who organizations are flat and stagnant and this is the way we do it, we always do it, and I'm the one that has to approve everything, they're not adapting well right now.
Wow. That's so true. Man, my heart goes out to those leaders. Um, because you said something I just thought about. One of the things, I mean, if if you lead like that, you're basically creating the culture where you're telling people you don't even have to try
No,
because I'm gonna do it.
no,
Yeah.
just get it 90%,
Yeah.
and I'll take it the rest of the way. And maybe if you're in an organization of 2 or 3 people, that's fine. But if your organization grows and grows and grows, then you just physically cannot do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I remember telling the leader this in West Africa because he was that type of leader. Everything came through him. He approved everything. He signed everything. I said, "When's the last time you've been on vacation? I mean, a real vacation where you checked out, where you went away, no cell phone, no nothing."
Yeah.
He hadn't had a vacation in like 8 years. And I said, and I was there to coach him. I said, well, the way we're going to know we're successful is you can take a 2 week vacation and not have to worry about anything because the test of a leader is not when he or she is there, but when he or she is away. If
Yes.
the organization falls flat when they're gone, that's a leadership issue.
Yeah.
It's not an operational issue, it's a leadership issue. But if it keeps humming while they're gone, when you come back, don't touch it.
Wow.
Don't
Wow.
touch it.
That is so true. John C. Maxwell said a quote I heard the other day. He said, "Allow people to grow, or allow them to go.
Yes, yes, absolutely,
Allow them to grow, or
absolutely, yeah,
allow them to go."
yeah,
Uh,
and that's yourself included.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, if you're that type of leader that
True.
can't grow and that you're just going to stay stuck, and no matter what advice you hear, and you're just going to stay there, then you just need to fire yourself and let somebody else have it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely. We had a experience. Well, actually, if it was probably maybe a month and some change ago. I was, I didn't get COVID-19, but I was exposed by someone that had COVID-19. So I voluntarily quarantined myself for
Yep.
2 weeks,
Yep.
and during the time, I mean, I said 2 weeks, so that means I wasn't in church for 2 weeks.
Right.
And I remember there was a time when everything beginning in the service was based on me being there.
Yes.
But now, and it makes me feel good as a leader that the organization and everything can operate with me not being there.
Right.
And I really not I think I know this. I think a lot of leaders struggle with this because I think it's a sense of an insecurity issue where if I'm not there and things still go well, you feel kind of insecure, feel like you're not needed, or you feel some type of way.
Right.
But when it happened with me, I was so excited about it. I mean, I was glad because in my mind it's the same thing that developing leaders. I was like, man, I developed something, developing people. And one thing I learned, I mean, even from reading the scripture, we always talk about the kingdom of God. And my thing as a pastor, I was like, man, if the organization, the growth of the organization, the operation of the organization is based on one man, which is me, I'm like, I'm not only doing the kingdom of this service, but I'm doing God of this service because I'm basically putting myself in the position to be the God of that organization. Because
Exactly.
if I'm out of the picture, it's not operating. I'm like, man, that's not kingdom.
No,
I'm
it's
like,
not kingdom.
kingdom is if I died today or tomorrow, this
Absolutely.
organization can go forward and continue to move strong as if I was there. Why? Because I developed the leaders.
Right.
I developed the leaders around me.
Which is exactly what Jesse told Moses, his father-in-law, and said, because Moses was sitting there operating. Moses, there were a family that went into bondage, but a nation came out.
Yeah,
And so he had this nation, over 1 million people, that he was trying to lead to the promised land.
yeah,
And Jethro, his father-in-law, saw him sitting there in the chair, presiding over all these issues, everything from how we're going to find water to, my wife fell down, and somebody's responsible. And he said, Moses, you can't do this. I mean, you're just going to wear yourself out and the people.
right.
He said, so here's what you do: find men who are capable, who are full of the Holy Spirit, who love God, and find other leaders and invest in them. And then you give that to them and you continue to take. I mean, he was trying to show him your leadership is different and unique. And so, to those leaders, again, who just can't let go, who can't seem to develop that sense of trust, or who have some problem of security of saying, well, if I give it all away and they're doing everything, why do they need me?
Mm,
Tell them to talk to me, because now you're ready to understand what leadership really is about. All of those duties of leadership that have been neglected
yeah,
because you're so busy running the operation.
yeah,
Guiding the business is different from running the business.
yeah.
And running the business can be done by a lot of different people than you. But guiding the business, only the leader can do it.
Wow, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I remember even with that experience, one thing it did do for me is it's something I heard before talked about leading from the balcony.
Mm.
So basically, those 2 Sundays that I was in the church, it actually gave me an opportunity to see how the online is going,
Yep.
uh, you know, from the people's perspective,
Yeah.
how is it going? And it allowed me to, to see some things. And whether things were good and some things that need to be worked on, just by sitting at the balcony on my sofa, watching the whole entire
Yes,
service.
yeah, yeah. You
That was
got to
definitely,
experience it from the
that was,
customer. I was coaching a guy who has a small business, a fish, business, and I was coaching him one time, and he was complaining about, the business, and you can't get good help.
mm.
I love it when people say, "I can't find good help." You don't find good help. You make good help. I
Right,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I remember telling him, I said, "When's the last time you walked in the front door of your business?" He's like, "I come in the front door every day." I said, "No, I mean in the middle of the day." I said, "Take a day off and just get up and have lunch here.
Mm,
Just, have lunch here." I said, "They're not expecting you to come. They think you're at home. Just have lunch here."
wow,
And it took him a while. Every time I would ask him, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get around to it." And he finally did it. It
wow,
changed his whole business. He finally saw it from the point of the customer. He could only see it from behind the counter.
yeah,
And until he walked in, not as they were planning, and this wasn't a gotcha trying to catch people, but it was just to see what your customers experience.
mm,
And every now and then they just need to see that, you know. What does it look like coming in the front door? What does it look like to sit in the pew or in the balcony, as you say? I like that.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Ocalm Solutions. What inspired you to begin this journey and why?
So the passion behind the business and kind of the genesis behind the business is to help people grow. Both technically, how do you take people who need to learn skills and transfer those skills, quickly, and then the leadership component is how do you grow them into leaders. And so the expertise I have in the business, which has evolved, Ocom Solutions, uh, and what I'm mainly focused on now is coaching leaders like yourself. I mean, your meeting with me was kind of organic. I can't even remember how we met now.
Yeah,
I think I was coaching somebody else, Brian, maybe.
I forgot the guy's name. I
Yeah,
forgot.
and he told me, he said, "I got somebody you need to talk to."
Yeah,
But helping leaders, and one of the axioms of the business is helping leaders find the joy in leadership.
mm,
And so the problem with leaders, and this is what we've been talking about, is they've lost the joy of leadership. But you talk to a lot of leaders, or the ones I end up talking to, they really hate their jobs, but
mm,
they stay in them because it pays more money, it's a promotion, and they hate it because they find themselves just focusing on the strategic planning, goal setting, operations, going to meetings, answering emails, and dealing with the problems of the people,
mm,
and they just hate it. And they hate it because at some point there's not enough money to make it joyful. I come in, what I want to do is, and what OCOM is about, is restoring that joy of leadership. And that is helping them understand. That's what organizational competence is about, is the building competence within your organization so that you then can return back to true leadership.
wow,
That's in a nutshell, that's what it is about. How do you develop that competence in your organization? Through
yeah,
coaching, mentoring, knowledge transfer, trust, delegation, all of those things that we talked about, so that the organization, and this is counterintuitive, can function without you.
wow,
And that's what OCOM Solutions is about, is helping leaders, find that joy in leadership again through coaching, giving them the tools to do the job, and helping them develop personally.
wow. And you know what? You done that for me. I'm sitting and I wrote it down. Helping leaders find the joy in leadership. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
talking. I remember in the beginning, I never knew that I would find the joy in leadership. I mean, I love it. I love leading people. I love the results of seeing people grow. I mean, I love it with a passion. Matter of fact, I get up earlier in the morning because
Yes.
I love the people that much. And it's like, I just want, I mean, I get up earlier so I can read so I can get more knowledge,
Right.
so I can teach them so they can grow more. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
so it's
That's your
so
job. That's the way it works.
and
You're in the treetop.
that's where my joy comes from every day. Every day, even the doing releasing 2 podcasts per week. I mean,
Yeah.
my joy in that is helping others. My personal statement is helping others reach their greatest potential, and
Yep.
together we can change the world. And I really believe that, and that's what's driving me. And I definitely appreciate what you have done for me. Your company. I mean, we were kind of what helps you continue to lead and to lead and to coach and do what you're doing. Where you're
Uh,
fighting from.
One is, again, I talk about leading from my instincts. That is my instinctual leadership style, is saying we should lean more heavily on what we call the soft skills of leadership versus the technical skills. Now, my leadership model is 4 pieces. Uh, I call them the 4 C's: competence, and that's what we think, leading with your head. You know, conviction, that's what we believe. That's called leading with your gut. Compassion, that's how we feel. That's leading with your heart. And then character, that's what we do. you know, and and so it's building that whole person. So what keeps me going is people like you, and I've done well. I mean, the people I do coach and have coached and poured into, they keep validating that that's the right approach.
No,
Now, there's a whole science of leadership that says hogwash. What you're doing is just that mushy stuff. When you get into organizations, multi-billion-dollar companies, man, you need a go-getter in there. You need somebody who's going to crush it. You need somebody who's going to, and when those leaders fail, they all fail for the same reasons. Not they weren't a hotshot software developer, not they weren't a hotshot engineer. It's because they lack those elements, that balance of, yeah, you need to have competence. I mean, you need to know the business,
no,
but you're going to fail because of poor character, that you have no compassion, that people know that you really don't care about them, and so they don't care about you or the organization, and that you really have no conviction about anything. You just go with whatever the wind blows. So that's what keeps me going, is the people I pour into all validate that and say, wow, that made a difference. And so that keeps me going. And so lately, currently what the business has evolved into is really me pouring now into younger and younger people. So I spend a lot of time with middle school, high school, freshman college. I'm currently, working with groups like XP7, which is a group of a good friend of mine has a group of young people where he built a paradigm around 7 principles: purpose, planning, presentation, all those things. So doing workshops, we've done workshops with that group. A Horizons group, the young man I said used to be a student, worked for me, and then he has a group of young African American Hispanic men, and then I'm working with a guy at Lone Star College, the Men's Center. So I'm really getting the joy out of saying, okay, how do we grow the next generation of leaders? How do we invest? Because failed leaders fail real early in life. They start failing early. Some of those character flaws and things that make them fail once they've gotten into the boardroom happened somewhere in the classroom or somewhere in their childhood. So if we can start developing these leaders and send them off to college with those leadership skills of really understanding what is demanded of them, I think that's where you really start to reap the benefits of what we're trying to do.
wow. And that's so awesome. I'm definitely excited. I know the Lead to Greatness audience is definitely going to be better for it, and the value that you definitely poured out from this interview. If you could get into a time machine and you can go back and have a conversation with your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Don't panic. Um, You don't have to have all the answers.
Mm,
Um, and at 17 and 18, you don't know what you don't know. You
right.
you you think you have all the answers. I'm not a kid anymore. You can't tell me what to do. I'm grown now,
Yeah,
and you
get
have no
you with
clue.
anybody, right?
But think about what we ask 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds to do. We ask them to plan their entire life right then and there.
Wow.
So we say at 17, boy, you need to think about going to college. You need to think about what career you want. You need to start taking responsibility. And so we put up on this 17-year-old, sit here in 1 hour and plan your entire life. Tell
Wow.
me what it is you're going to be doing 30 years from now. And they have no clue. So they just pick one. Okay, I want to be an accountant, or I want to be an engineer. They have no clue. And so, at 18, I had no clue what I wanted to do. Luckily for me, back then they had what called distributive education. So I took drafting in high school. So I'd say, I guess I'll be a draftsman. And I started out that. But here's the thing. The reason I would say to that 18-year-old Robert, don't panic, because you're going to end up doing what you're supposed to be doing anyway.
Wow. Yes.
And I truly believe that. I truly believe, and I've said this countless of times to people. It may take 10 years, 20 years. You're going to end up doing what's in you to do, no matter what your job is.
Wow.
I've been doing leadership development my entire career. I just didn't know it. It wasn't called that. I was investing in people. Even as a individual contributor, I was helping my peers. So yeah, I mean, that's my message now when I go to the universities, I go to high schools, and I tell those kids, relax. We created we're generating this model called paths, where we're trying to help them, build a path to the next career. I've done presentations and workshops, and they all breathe a little easier, that all you need to know is the next step. You don't have to have what you're going to look like in 15, 20 years.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, so Robert, if someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Go to our social media, Ocalm Solutions. Just type it in Google, or type my name in Google, Robert Glaspie, Glaspie. And we've got, because of our business model, we changed it. So we got away from websites.
Okay.
Because they end up being just dead websites. We didn't get any traffic through them. So, but through through Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, you'll find us, Ocalm Solutions.
And I also like what you did with through YouTube. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube channel. We got a couple. Yeah, YouTube channel.
I did what lessons from my grandson. That's awesome.
Yeah, leadership lessons from a 2-year-old.
Yes, I love it. Love it. Yeah.
I've written articles for Huffington Post. So yeah, I mean, those are a lot of fun. He's 6 now, so that's how long I've been doing those.
Yes, definitely. But Robert, I thank you so much. Once again, I thank you so much. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to add value to us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Lead to Greatness, I want to thank you so much for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Have a good one.